Why, hello, everyone. My name is Kip Davis. I'm a biblical scholar and a specialist in the Dead Sea Scrolls, and it's Monday, September the 23rd at 2 o'clock in the afternoon here on the Pacific Coast. I'm joined by my friend and very capable producer, Vishanti. Vishanti, how are you?
I have pizza, so hell yeah.
Yeah, she does. And you know what happens when you have
The
pizza?
show today is no exception to some of the great work that I've done in the past.
Josh is probably going to get mad at me for using his favorite bit in his absence, but what are you going to do? Sorry, Josh. That's just how these things roll. Hey everyone. Welcome. Welcome to my channel. Welcome to the show. I just just wanted to hang out. Good to see you, Satan. What does that say? Sorry, I have my
This
cameras in
better
the
be
way.
good, or the hockey gods will smite us.
Oh, that's probably true. I don't know if you noticed, but Joel is not happy with me. So sorry, dude. What can I say? It's good to see you, Nitty. Good to see you, Pragmatic Crystal. Good to see this guy.
Poker toe, Simone.
Yeah, Simone is here. Jason Rollins, one of my patrons, is here as well. Excellent. Oh, look who else is here, guys. I'm excited. It's Matt Monger, everyone.
Yay!
Good to see you, Matt. So
Matt, you
Matt's
can
coming
you can
back to you
jump in here if
guys.
you want.
Actually, if you want to jump in, you missed you missed the show last Sunday. I'd hate for you to feel left out. So by all means, jump on
Yeah,
in.
drop him the
So
link.
so yeah, I could send it to him. Maybe I
Do it.
should do that. I will send. Oh, he says Matt says he's glad he missed the show. I don't know. I feel like
You're gonna be glad you missed this stream though.
that's another matter entirely. So Matt, I'm just dropping this into Messenger for you somewhere. There we go. We'll put it there. I think there's probably a few people in that one, but that's okay. Yeah. I hope everyone's doing well. I've got some stuff going on. I thought I'd just sort of update you on some things that are happening. I've got a big week ahead of me. I wanted to get a live show in this week, do some Q&A with the people because I'm flying out tomorrow and I'm heading to sunny Florida. I've never been to Florida before. So this will be my first time. I will be hanging out with my buddies, Derek Lambert from Myth Vision Podcast and Neil Sandlack, the Gnostic Informant. And on Friday, I will be recording an episode on the Danny Jones podcast, all about the Dead Sea Scrolls, the discovery, some of the crazy people behind their publication, like the infamous, notorious John Marco Allegro, the so-called maverick of the Dead Sea Scrolls, and we'll probably talk about forgeries. It's going to be great. I'm very excited about it. I hope you all tune in when it comes out. We'll see how it goes. So that's going down. I should remind everyone, we did a live stream a couple weeks ago, myself and my good friend and colleague, Dr. Joshua Bowen, with Dr. Mark Luchter, responding to some of the criticisms that we received from one Michael Jones, who runs a channel called Conspiring Sophistry or something to that effect. I don't know. And a now disgraced Egyptologist, about our appraisal of the conquest narratives and the archaeology of the Levant in the the late Bronze Age and the early Iron Age. So we had Dr. Mark Luchter on to talk about that a couple weeks ago. In 2 weeks, it's the first Friday in October. I believe that's October 4th. Josh and I will be back with another live show. It'll be Friday evening. And we will be joined by Dr. Maggie Bryson, who is an Egyptologist, did her training at Johns Hopkins. And she will be discussing with us Egypt in the Ramesside period. She is a New Kingdom specialist, so she's going to tell us all about what was going on in Egypt in the Ramesside period, right at the end of the Bronze Age, what the situation looked like in the Levant with regards to Egyptian control and the Egyptian presence there. So that should be fun. I hope you all tune in for that. Yeah, sorry, Tomer. This can't be helped. Whenever I do shows with Dr. Joshua Bowen, he is he's unavailable at earlier times. Something about life and family and that sort of nonsense. But what are you gonna do? So yeah, the time is what the time is, and it's oh, what does that say? The mosquitoes will drain you dry. Oh, in Florida? Is that true? Is that true about Florida?
The mosquitoes are no joke, and if you don't find some sort of repellent, you are going to regret it.
Is that wow? Really? Oh,
the
dear.
bugs there are very large.
Yeah. See, this is something that
Mhm.
I hadn't counted on, and now I'm wondering if I should go. Boy, I'm not
Listen,
a
if
fan
it's not the
of
skeeters, it's
bugs.
gonna be the gators that get you. So
Yeah,
I'm
you know,
just saying.
I don't know. I boy. Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll think it through. I still have 22 hours before my flight, so
Not too late.
we'll see what happens. It's not too late, eh? Okay.
And it's
All
honestly,
right.
it's not just the mosquitoes and the gators. It's the humidity, Kip. You're not prepared for how thick and damp the air is going to be. It's a level of humidity you did not think was possible. It's like jungle all the time.
Wow, you're really selling me on this, Vish.
I've been to Florida. Listen, I
Hurricane
grew up in the
expected
deep south. I've
27 to
been to
28. Yes.
Florida more times than I've ever wanted to, and also they're expecting a tropical storm, possible hurricane this week. So good
Yes,
luck.
I've noticed this. I actually talked to Danny Jones this morning about this. He was happy that I'm actually flying into Orlando instead of Tampa, because apparently the weather in Tampa's hell right now. So I don't know. We'll see. It's all a journey, as my friend.
Also, that's Central Florida. That's cut off
phone.
jorts and mullets. So have fun.
Should I pack my jorts?
Yes. It's the only way to blend in with the locals.
I definitely think the jorts are going into the suitcase. Excellent. So yeah, heading to Florida next week. When I get back, we'll have Maggie Bryson on to talk about New Kingdom, Ramesside period, Egypt, and the Levant. And then we're still sorting out dates, but I'm very pleased to announce that we have secured an interview with archaeologist and scholar Amahai Mazar from the land of Israel, who is going to talk to us about archaeology in the Levant. He's going to talk to us about the situation in the late Bronze and the early Iron Age. He's going to talk to us about general things with regards to what to do with destruction layers. I said layers, didn't I? What to do with destruction layers, how to navigate some of the pitfalls in archaeology. He'll talk a little bit about the city of Jericho as well, which is going to be great. And then we're going to have Bob Cargill on. Bob Cargill from the Excavator channel here on YouTube. He's an archaeologist at the University of Iowa. So that is that's what's happening, guys. Oh, and there's more as well coming. We have filmed an installment with Stephen Woodford of Rationality Rules, the first of 4, I believe, 4 or 5 that we're going to do. And those will come out over a longer period of time, and they will all have to do with the conquest narratives, with the composition of the book of Joshua, with just generally the relationship between archaeology and the Bible. We're really wanting to put this thing to bed. So there's that. And then I've received word from a gentleman by the name of Thomas Westbrook, who runs a channel called Holy Kool-Aid. About 2.5, 3 years ago, he was the recipient of a popcorn review. I don't know if you're familiar with these, Vish, but David Falk, the Egyptologist over at Ancient Egypt and the Bible, likes to do movie reviews. Oh my gosh.
Look who it is.
Look who it is.
Hey.
Hey, dude. Good to see you.
What's up?
Wow.
How we doing?
We're doing great.
on.
How are you?
I gotta pause you because you were in my ears on the stream, and then all of a sudden I was
Okay.
in the studio and I got so confused.
Wow.
I could hear your voice double time. But hey, what's up?
Look, guys. Matt got a haircut. Looks good, Matt.
Yes.
That's
Thanks. I didn't even style it for you. I'm sorry.
No,
I didn't
well,
expect
it's-
this. That was
It's late.
It's
late
late.
at night.
Yeah, lucky for you, my son is at his first high school party, and he will be
On a
getting
Monday?
home. It's a Norwegian thing, Kip. You remember the graduates,
Oh, yes.
so
These
senior
parties go all
year.
year. Yeah.
Well, yeah, and like they take off the last few months of school just to party. Well, they start early, and my son's a freshman, but apparently they get invited to these parties now. So, yeah, I don't know, but anyway, I'm probably sharing too much with the world out there. But yeah, so I'm waiting up for him.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
So you've got lots of time then to wait.
I hope it's not that much time, but yeah,
Who are we kidding,
it's
Matt?
It's time well
Are we
spent.
kidding? Master
Yeah.
Monger.
That's right. Oh God, I forgot to change that. When was that
No.
from?
It's
That's all right.
I don't know.
Leave it.
I
It's good.
like it.
Yeah,
It's very, very appropriate. So
It is.
so is he the first one of yours?
No, it's number 2.
Number 2. That's right.
Yeah, Patter. Yeah, but he's
Right.
yep, he's he started high school this year, and so that's what they do.
Very exciting.
Yeah.
Exciting
up so
times, everyone.
fast.
They really do. Zach says he wants to see an interview with IP and Kip.
That'd be fun.
I don't know. That would be fun. Can you make that happen, Zach? I wonder how that would look. I wonder if Mike would be down for that. I have my suspicions. He doesn't like me.
Has he
very
blocked
much.
you on social media yet? Because if the answer
All
is no,
of
then you
them.
might have a shot.
All of them. He blocked me on
Uh-oh.
his YouTube channel, on Twitter, on I'm not on Instagram.
Someone's
so
mad.
yeah, he's pretty upset with me. So yes. So but as I'll just finish saying what I was saying here. Holy Kool-Aid is going to be doing a video responding to David Falk's popcorn review of a video he did a few years ago about the conquest. And Josh, myself, Dr. Dan McClellan are all going to be involved with that. So that'll be fun.
Nice.
People should look for that coming out soon.
We need to have a conversation about Thomas later.
I
after the
know,
stream.
I understand, and I know this conversation.
Okay.
And
All right,
I
then.
know all about this and your feelings. We can certainly talk about that off air, but that's not what we're here to
Hey, you know
do.
what? It's the
We're here
month of
to
Elul, and we're here to talk about accountability for the rest of the month and then the next 10 days after. So,
there we
no
go.
time like the present.
No time like the present.
Anyway,
So,
but not on my
and
channel.
it's a good thing. It's a good thing you're here, Matt, because you weren't here 2 weeks ago when was it 2 weeks ago or was it last weekend that we did
It was
Diablo
last
Critics?
weekend, I
Was it
think.
last weekend? Right. Yeah,
I think
and Matt
so.
was busy. So you totally missed out on Dr. Andrew Loke telling us all about the historical Adam and how the historical Adam, his model of the historical Adam, what he calls I think genetic Adam and Eve, GAE, is in no way in conflict with the biblical creation story. It's a strange statement. It's a strange sentence as it's coming out of my mouth. It was sort of a strange video to respond to, but it turns out that Dr. Loke took the time to watch our critique of his arguments, and he wrote a response, Matt. And he posted his response on academia on his academia.edu page, which is, I don't know about you, but that's where I promote all my all my YouTube interactions.
Yep.
S-
That's the place for it.
That's something. So I
Yeah.
thought
Famous arena for dialogue and debate, academia.edu.
that's the place for it. It's true. So I just thought maybe we could take some time. We could look at what he has to say. If Adam was not historical, how would we know what animals are called?
Checkmate,
Right.
atheists.
Oh, damn it. And wait, in Hebrew or in Syriac or in English or what? I'm
Well,
confused.
Hebrew was the original language, don't
It
you
was
know?
probably the
Well,
original
not
language.
according to the Syriacs. Please don't get it wrong. But no, okay. But could I
Those
just ask a
heretics.
question? Could I just ask a
Yes, sir.
question? Because I like the flood more than I like Adam and Eve. I'm just asking: is it not genetic Noah and Imzara and the sons and daughters? I mean, wouldn't that be just? I mean, we don't really need Adam and Eve because we have that bottleneck at the flood. So, what, like, why do we even have to talk about Adam and Eve?
I don't know. You're the Noah guy. You
I'm just
tell me.
saying. I mean, I'm just saying like is the genetic thing, is it the same line at whether or not we talk about the Garden of Eden or the flood story, or does he
You know
mention
what?
that at
Don't
all?
worry
I'm
about
just
it.
wondering.
That's the answer. Don't worry about it.
I'm
Dr.
not.
Loke might have to write another book now.
Well, I know. I mean, I don't know. I literally, because I didn't do the video last week, I didn't watch his thing. I have not engaged with his work at all. I just saw your YouTube and thought I'd drop by. So I'm not commenting on his work or anything, but I am interested.
Oh, okay. Well, let's
Yeah.
should we take a look at what he wrote here and see what
Show
he has
me.
to say. So
Okay.
this is
we start with
let's
this?
pull up the document first, Vish. Guys, if you have
Alrighty.
any questions, feel free to throw those into the chat. And we can look at those as we go along here, as need be. There we go.
Alright.
So this is the reply to Diablo critics concerning the historical Adam. I gotta move this over a little bit so I can see it properly. All right. So, Look, it's a living document, guys. This document will be updated on a regular basis in response to new objections from the Diablo critics as I become aware of them. All right. So I assume this means we can expect an update fairly shortly after this stream, guys. That's exciting. All right, I'm just going to I'm going to start reading here. A group which identifies itself as the Diablo critics: Kip Davis, Joshua Bone, Jennifer Bird, and Vishanti.
No.
It's
Yeah.
it's
No,
but
I'm not a Diablo critic. I'm just here to produce.
he's a noob. Vish, he doesn't know these
He's
things.
a noob.
So he doesn't understand.
Ugh.
We have slowly started to develop a little bit of lore, I think, and he's not privy to any of that. So that's forgivable. So they recently offered criticisms of my interview with Zach Miller on perspectives on the historical Adam and Eve. In the following sections, I shall show that they have committed at least 30 errors in their criticism and have failed to refute my arguments.
Woo.
All right. So I'm actually not going to read this first bit because it's about his training at King's College in London. I'm sure he did very well. He's published some stuff in New Testament monograph series. In the New Testament Studies monograph series, he's written some papers and articles published in New Testament critical journals. Great, that's awesome. Good for you, Andrew. I'm still not altogether that convinced that this qualifies you to as a critic of the Hebrew Bible, but you do you. That's good. So good to see you here, by the way, Apologia. And I think it's worthwhile pointing this out. Andrew Loke has a similar document about me. I find him able to handle criticism and negative feedback without getting easily offended and upset. Yes. There seems to be a pattern here. So, all right. So we committed 3 errors in our pointing out that that he didn't do any of his terminal degree work in the Hebrew text. I still think it's a fair criticism. So he could,
But
yeah, go ahead.
but is so I'm just I his but his sorry, I'm getting my Norwegian confused with my English here, but his assertions, there we go, are not about the Hebrew Bible, really. They're about genetics and the biblical story of the origin of mankind. Right? Isn't that the whole point, that he's kind of saying that he's not actually engaging with the historical criticism of the Hebrew Bible?
I think that's true.
So that's, I mean, this was
That
the only thing that I saw was these task A, B, and C
right.
things, and it seems like what he's arguing is it doesn't matter what his education is, though I mean, and I think he definitely has academic pedigree, so I don't think it's worth like
Sure.
quibbling
I
about
agree.
that. But like, if he's basically saying he's not reading the text, and so he's trying to say it doesn't really matter what you've studied, because he's just saying something different. Is that what is?
As I read through this document, I think that's where he wants to go. Is that it doesn't matter what the text meant or what it says. All that matters is that it does not contradict, I guess, with his scientific model.
Okay. Yeah.
And I don't know. I I think that's that's kind of a quibbling point. It does not contradict is about the lowest of bars
Yeah.
when it comes to doing any of this kind of work, right?
Yeah.
So, all right. So
But
let's.
is he a geneticist? Is just, I guess, what I'm also
He's
as I
not
want is
that
his
either,
PhD in
but
genetics. No.
apparently there's he cited what's his name? Swamidass,
Mhm.
who is a scientist who thinks that he's done some useful things.
Okay.
Joshua Swamidass,
Yeah. So the
Dr.
argument
Zachary Adern.
so the argument he's putting forth is that he has academic pedigree in the New Testament, which
Yes.
is transferable to the discussion at hand, and he's relying on experts in both fields as a person who's been academically trained.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Okay.
And that's
That's
fair.
fair. That,
All right.
sure.
So good. All right. So but let's move on here with his critique of our actual discussion. The critics played a clip of my interview which included my explanation of task A, reading the text and interpreting what the biblical authors were trying to say. Task B, showing that what they said was true, and task C, showing that there's no incompatibility between the Bible and evolution. And this is where the bulk of his criticism for us lay. So I actually did you maybe want to well, we'll come back to it as we need to, but people need to keep these individual tasks in mind. Now, I would argue that in order to accomplish either task B or task C, we need to have a clear understanding and perspective of what these texts were originally written and intended to say, and what the original readers understood them to mean. I mean, in my work, in my way of thinking, that's just biblical scholarship, right?
Right.
So
It's well, and I mean, I don't know. I feel like the first thing you do on the first day of Intro to the Bible is try to expose the biases that we bring from our modern perspectives and ideas and theories about how life, the universe, earth, everything works, and then expose how the
yep,
biblical authors didn't share those paradigms and understandings of the way things function, and therefore could never have meant to express those ideas.
yeah, exactly.
I
According to
mean,
Wikipedia, Loke worked as oh, right.
so he has an MD as well.
He has an MD apparently. Wow. That's a
That's
busy
impressive.
guy.
That's very
That is
impressive.
really impressive, actually.
This may come as a shock, but your MD doesn't qualify you to be like discussing evolution like an expert
What?
in the field of, say,
I
genetics.
I have noticed that as well. So there's a couple of MDs working over there at Answers in Genesis. So it
You know,
happens, right? They go all
this
over.
I have to say this because AIG was just grasping clutching their pearls in shock that so many of their congregants refused to get the COVID vaccine. They just couldn't figure out why when the science was so clear after all these years of saying that science isn't reliable and it's all fake and atheistic evolutionist. And it was just a self-werewolves moment. I couldn't stop laughing. So,
Wow.
Those chickens came home to roost.
Some people call that karma, right? Or am I misunderstanding karma here?
Well, in the colloquial sense,
Yes.
yes. In the actual Hindu sense, no. Karma would be for the next life, but whatever.
Got it. Good to know. All right. So, okay, so those are the tasks. After that, one critic said of their video that their logic isn't logic without explaining why. Another critic said, concordism, aren't you just right at the outset doing the thing that you said you shouldn't do by looking for this compatibility between the ancient text and science? So the accusation that I made in the video was because something that Loke said in the outset of his presentation is that he's not engaging in concordism, whereby he's not taking a scientific approach to the biblical text. He explains it here. Concordism is the error of using modern science to interpret the Bible. This concerns task A, whereas showing that there is no incompatibility is task C, not task A, i.e., it is not the same as interpreting the Bible. The critic confounds task A with task C, and he says this is an error.
Andrew, no one cares. Stop being a pedant.
But
That
I'm
was
so
my
confused.
first
Wait,
reaction. Yeah, go, Matt.
I can't, no, I can't see you through the muddy waters. Like I'm just so confused. Whose tasks are these? Are these his tasks?
I assume these
Or
are
because
his.
I've never heard of these tasks in anything else
No.
I've
Tell you what.
ever taken part in.
Let me swap over to the
Yeah, show me.
Here we go. Yeah, let's
to
look
the
at this.
slide. This is what he's talking about.
Needs to distinguish
From
between
his
the following
presentation.
tasks: interpreting the Bible, showing that the biblical count is true, and showing that there is no incompatibility between evolution and the Bible. Note the difference between 1, saying that the Bible teaches Big Bang, evolution, etc., and 2, saying the Bible does not contradict Big Bang and evolution, etc.
He's grasping for that little straw. It doesn't teach
So
Big Bang, but it doesn't contradict it.
he's-
So you're telling me
he's-
there's a chance.
That's
Yeah.
it, right? It's the entire model is so you're telling me there's a chance.
Right. So wait. Did he manage task B? Because it seems to
He
me
wasn't
that
trying
task
to.
C, but wouldn't task C rely on accepting
Does
that
task
task B
C
has successfully been accomplished?
I wonder if he
Well,
would
your
say
first
task C
mistake
shows
is
the
assuming good
possibility.
faith.
Yeah.
I'm
True.
just confused. I don't
But
I don't know. I don't get it. I don't get the logic of setting up. I'm sorry. I apologize. This is exactly what you said, is that you don't get the logic. But
Yes.
the tasks, as interpreting the Bible is a task that's different than showing that it's true, which is then different than showing there's no incompatibility.
Incompatibility. It's
Okay, it sounds like
And-
a fun game. It's a fun game to play.
it's
Sure,
a fun
go for
it is. Essentially, this is what it is. And people wonder why I get frustrated with philosophers.
Yeah.
And I listen, guys, I did I did philosophy in my undergrad. I took courses on the philosophy of art, philosophy of language, philosophy of science. Enjoyed them all immensely. And we didn't, twiddle our thumbs in my undergraduate courses on stuff like this. But it's this kind of stuff that really, really frustrates me coming out of, Christian philosophers that I encounter in this medium, in this sphere. It's like, guys, nobody cares about this stuff.
Mm.
Your games, your language games, don't mean anything to anyone in the real world. So
Yeah.
like,
Yeah, and it's just like watching a bad magician with a sleight of hands.
Yes.
It's just kind of like so here I'm going to tell you about the Bible, but I'm not interpreting it. And I'm going to tell you what I think is true about the Bible, but I'm not showing that the Bible is true. I'm only telling that there's no incompatibility. So I don't get
Just
the
telling you
point.
there's a chance.
Okay, that's fine.
So long as
there's a chance.
there's a
Well,
chance, I guess
yeah,
you're good.
well, and I mean,
But
and I'm enough of an agnostic to tell you there's a chance of anything. I mean, we could be in a simulation.
of
We could
course,
be in the 17th iteration of the universe, or the 17 millionth. We don't know, but I'm not sure there's much of a chance that he's not trying to influence interpretations of the Bible through what he's doing. That's where.
I know that slippery slope where it's like, I'm not interpreting the Bible, I'm just telling you what it says. As if those are different.
I just wonder from people like Loke, who forward these sorts of models and arguments. Like, really, is this really good enough for you? Like, is this really where you want to, hang your hat, plant your flag? Is this the hill that you are pinning your hopes to in your understanding of the text? It's enough to say there's a chance. It's weak, man. It's
Well, but I don't know. It's interesting that this is a technique that's
yeah.
but again, it's I think I'd like to hear more of what his objections are to what
Yes.
you said.
All right.
Let's,
Let's bring the document up and keep reading here. So
I have to
while you're
sharing
doing
and
that, I
reshare of
think
it's
I'll
ridiculous.
just pull up this here. Matthew K, who's been a member of my channel for 5 months, said, "What were the dinosaurs named before the flood? We know they didn't survive it. Much love, my friends." Thank you, Matthew K. Matt,
Well, they had to.
any ideas on what the dinosaurs were called before the flood? Do they tell you
No.
that in the the Syriac commentators, the Eastern Church Fathers? They don't talk about what the
No.
dinosaurs were called. Okay.
No.
So
I mean,
they
there's
probably
there is a text that that talks about finding some big bones on a mountain, but like I think they just thought it was a dragon or
probably right. That's
Leviathan
probably
or something. But
yeah.
Yeah. No. So
I think
anyway, just
they
I like the
they
question. I
probably
like the irony.
It's a very good question. All right. Let's keep reading. Okay, so we did concordism. So now he says in his next objection, one critic said this is a common apologetic trope when it comes to the Bible. The goal seems to be among Christian apologists to say, well, the text doesn't directly contradict this possibility. So long as it's non-explicit, there's lots of things that we can import, read into the text. In reply, when I talk about possibility, I am doing task C, not task A, reading the text.
This is so frustrating.
So is basically saying, yeah, but that's fine, right? I mean, that's what I'm reading here. Am I getting
I'm
this
just
wrong?
the third thing, not the first thing that you accused me of. Gosh. So ridiculous.
I'm so confused.
I am too.
So he's not interpreting the text. He's only interpreting the text in relation to a modern thing, but he's not actually interpreting the text. Is that the argument? Because I don't understand
these are all
how
separate.
So, can somebody please call Wittgenstein and tell him that we need a lesson on the philosophy of language? Like you cannot.
That would be
you
useful.
cannot compare a reading to modern science without having gone through the phase of interpretation.
Yes,
like this is just basic, isn't it?
I assume so.
You can't compare two things unless you've done at least first level interpretation of what you think the text says. So the assumption that the story of Adam and Eve is only talking about two people and there were no other people created or anything else is also an assumption that's placed on the interpretive level of whoever's reading this, right?
I mean,
I think
also,
so.
since he wants the smoke, he lumped me in with you, so have fun with this. If he's going to be a pedant, so am I. He says in his slide that interpreting the Bible is task A, and then right here tries to go, no, task A is reading the text.
Reading the
Homie,
text.
pick one. I suspect, having not read through this, that he's going to interchange those quite a bit. I might be wrong, but let's just, stick a pin in that.
Maybe we can help him fix this. He said he's going to come back to it as time goes on. It's a rolling document, you guys. It's like McCain's Jeremiah. All right. Let's continue. It's the next page, right? Okay. One critic said, it certainly does seem to be a case of beginning with one's conclusion and then backing in the data. And his reply to this is that showing that there is no incompatibility between the Bible and evolution, this is task C, right, does not imply beginning with one's conclusion and then backing in the data. Rather, it is showing that the critic's conclusion that they are incompatible but does not follow from his or her data. The critic fails to note the issue concerning the burden of proof, which I explained in the video.
Homie.
And I think this is...
no.
But what?
This is the thing.
What?
Any honest interlocutor, any scientist that follows the data, just follows it and lets it lead wherever it's lead, is never going to come to the conclusion, oh, the earth is 6,000 years old and the Bible has an accurate rendition of history and our modern scientific concepts just don't contradict that. That's not what the data is going to lead you to. There's a reason that young earth creationists start as Christians and then just kind of like backtrack their science onto it. You don't see scientists stumbling headfirst into young earth creationism.
No, they're like, where can I find a theory to back up my 6,000-year finds? Like,
well, it doesn't contradict.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm sure you all covered this, but could somebody please explain to me how a good Bible-believing Christian reads Genesis chapter 1 and says that God actually, it says, and he created. Like, does he really think that the order in which things are presented in Genesis 1 directly aligns with the theory of evolution, and that they're in the text? It's not saying that God created, but that he allowed them to evolve. Like, is this what he means by it's not contradicting? Like, the order is correct, and God does not create anything without it being part of the line of evolution. So there's no contradiction. Is that literally what's being said here?
I have to assume that.
Because that just seems very...
This is going to be me. I'm going to be pedantic because he wants to be pedantic.
Please.
So even if you say that like the order of creation doesn't contradict, most of that is cosmology. It's not evolution. Evolution has to do with like the development and speciation of like biological creatures. It doesn't have to do with stellar formation. That's cosmology. That's not evolution. So
well, and
the only time that he could get to evolution is once animals are created and potentially plants. But where do fungi fit in there? So
and then we also have two other big major problems. One is the Genesis 2, which is of course is something else. I mean that that things come in the wrong order and all that. But then the other thing is that isn't like the whole point of evolution and the idea of the development of biological life on the planet the result of the fact that the sun provides energy?
God was the mechanism behind that, don't you know?
But the sun wasn't there for the first things that developed, right?
Well,
No,
Apparently, Loke doesn't believe in a young
the
Earth, which
plants developed
is only
in
half
the
a
dark.
point of credit. Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's like you start running into all these issues of, okay, how long can plants survive without a sun? Was God just miraculously keeping them alive for some indiscriminate period of time? Are the days metaphorical? If they're not, how long exactly are they? And is the order of creation literally true, or is it just metaphor or figuratively true? However that would mean. None of that works. It doesn't really matter which model you pick. Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks for clearing that up. I'm
You're applying too much logic, Matt.
And I'm not a logician. I have no PhD terminal degree in logic, so I'll stop that.
Yeah, I killed Earl is 100% correct here. Christians, by which they probably mean like apologists, conflate evolution, abiogenesis, and a cosmology all the time. Drives me insane.
Yeah.
All right.
Good.
Okay. He continues. One critic said, "You're starting with this assumption. The Hebrew Bible presents historically an historically reliable account of what happened." And his reply to that is that showing there is no incompatibility between X and Y does not imply starting with the assumption that X is true or reliable.
You don't have to assume it. You just need to want it, which he does.
I think so. And I continue to maintain that any effort to take the ancient mythology and to see how much I guess science and history you can pack into that, or at least demonstrate compatibility with, you're engaging in this even if you're not aware of it. What you're doing is failing to understand what the ancient myths are and what they're doing in the first place. If you're looking for ways in which they don't contradict with modern science, I would say even asking that question or looking from that perspective, you're making an assumption about the historicity of these things. Am I wrong in that?
It's a conclusion in search of evidence.
Well, I mean, I think I understand what he's trying to say, what he's doing, right? If he's saying, so X and Y are compatible.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying. It's X and Y are compatible. X and Y are compatible. But what he's just saying is that a surface reading on both sides. Now I just did Trump fingers. I'm sorry. The surface reading on both sides, so of the Bible, of a statement from the Bible, and a surface reading of the theory of evolution or whatever he's trying to show the compatibility with, that two surface statements could be compatible despite the cultural and metaphysical differences between the sources. And in that case, I would say, sure. Like you could say that two statements from wildly different contexts could be compatible with each other. But that has absolutely no bearing on anything. Like in reality, unless you're trying to say something more, right? And so I get it. I get why he's being pedantic, because he's trying to say you can't get me, because you can always say two things and say, well, these two statements are compatible. But what we want as scholars is to know what the world is, what the culture is, what the context is that's forming surface statements, and then knowing whether or not they're deeply congruent with the statements about their interpretation. And so I feel like you have to say, I don't interpret the text. and I don't question whether or not anything is true, but I'm just asking whether these surface values are compatible. And then that, if that's what it is, then baby, we're just doing like we're just, I don't know. I don't know. You're doing
What
first
is
grade
the point of
pickup
all of
sticks or
this?
something. I don't know.
Yeah, right. It's yeah.
Sorry
Okay.
about the rambling. I
No,
just
no,
I'm
no.
trying to get my head around this thing.
Yeah, Simone is doing really well. I could say that there's one orbiting teapot, and Cthulhu also exists, but is invisible. And neither of those things contradict each other, but it doesn't establish anything like the truth value of either.
Yep. I think that's
Yep.
Again, so you're telling me there's a
solid.
chance.
Yes, exactly.
Mm.
So,
by the way,
Josh,
uh,
yeah.
real quick before we get started,
Oh, yes.
we have a $5 super chat. Having read everything thus far, is Luke dizzy from chasing his own tail yet? Well, this document does tend to go on, so
It
Well,
does.
I don't think he's dizzy because I think he's just focused on task C.
That's it.
Hmm.
That's
He doesn't
that's
have
the
to chase
goal, right?
anything.
So that's probably fair. Thank you very much for the super chat. Okay, so Josh made this this point in our stream. The apologetic discourse seems to be on the whole, well, we don't really have enough data to say that it's true or that it's not true. So if you look at for example, architecture from Jericho, there's much of this in secondary deposits and really can't construct a good representation of what's going on in the Bronze Age, the late Bronze Age. Therefore, the default should be the text is still reliable historically and methodologically. And he's saying this is problematic. We've been doing a lot of stuff with the conquest and the archaeology of the Levant at the end of the late Bronze, early Iron Age. And what he's saying here is when you look at some of the ways in which there's ambiguity or there's not as much data as we would like from the period or from a particular site, there's always some room to say, well, it could be, X.
yeah, but
Even
his thing
though
is he's starting from the position that you can use the Bible to fill in missing puzzle pieces. Like, that's his background starting place.
yeah.
And when he finds missing puzzle pieces, for instance, in Jericho, where it's not super clear one way or the other, well, his backdrop is the Bible, so it doesn't conflict, so he's going with the Bible. But he's showing his hand because there are many other sources that he could use to help fill in the pieces there, and he, of course, wouldn't treat them as the same, like being on the same level. So he can keep going, well,
Yeah.
I'm just not doing what you think I'm doing a different thing that actually ends up being the same thing.
And this is how he responds, right? That's not what I'm arguing. He says, I am not arguing just because it's possible, task C, therefore it is reliable, task B. I kept task B and C separate, but the critic has confounded them. But at that point, why does it even matter? If you're not attempting to make this connection back to task B and task A.
Yeah.
Like,
So
why should anybody care?
But is he not an apologist then? He's just a theorist? Is that a statement that he's not making truth claims about the Bible? Like, is that at the end of the day what his defense is, that he has not made any truth claims about the Bible?
It
And
feels like
therefore,
that's
okay, that's good then.
Well,
Because we
again, the
agree.
fact that he says we need to distinguish between the tasks. Like, he thinks that interpreting the Bible, showing that anything that's like written in the Bible is true, and that showing that there's no incompatibility between evolution and the Bible, he thinks those are three separate tasks that you can separate. My friend, no, you cannot. You cannot.
I agree. If you're doing one, you're doing them all, right?
Well,
Or
And
I
his
I
guess
whole
I,
little Jenga tower here is, well, I wasn't doing what I think is task A. I was actually doing what I think is task C. So you're just wrong. Like, honey, that's not the problem.
yeah. But okay, cool. I mean,
it,
that's yeah.
it makes it
It's
easy to ignore then, right? I mean, if
yeah.
you're just going to if you're just going to settle on, so there's a chance I'm making an argument for this remotest of possibilities. All right, you have that.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
good.
I mean, there's no reason to think that the Bible isn't getting it right. I mean, the evidence that we have doesn't contradict it. That's part of his argument.
Yes.
And that's weak. That's weak
It's
as
very
heck.
weak.
That's not how any of these fields operate.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
here he continues. He says, one critic says, how much are we sacrificing from literary approaches to the text when centering our focus on the need for establishing some form of historicity, and in this case, one that complies with science, which was just completely irrelevant to the text. In so doing, you're committing the first cardinal error in reading the Bible by just failing to grasp and understand what this is all about. And his reply to that is that his genealogical Adam and Eve model is not aimed at establishing some form of historicity, that's task B, but rather to show that there's no incompatibility with science, task C. Again, the critic is confounding task B and C. The critic's objection regarding the first cardinal error in Bible reading concerns task A, but my model concerns task C. I did not advocate using the model to read the Bible. The critic misrepresented my view and confounded task A and C. I just,
Okay,
again,
first,
I'm like, if
again,
you're not going
Andrew.
to engage in how to read the text or what the text actually says, what is the point?
Andrew,
I
sweetheart, if you're going to post something on academia.edu, which you hold in some esteem, clearly, you would benefit from a proofreader or an editor to close direct quotes, because you never closed the direct quote here. So I can't tell when the Diablo critic stops talking and you start talking. That's important. There's a couple of sentences in here that need clarification, and you didn't do that. And I'm starting to think that you were just like stream of consciousness jotting these things down as you watch the video. It didn't really like outline or script this out, which is fine. I mean, I have rough drafts sitting in my drive. That's cool. First drafts are supposed to suck. That's what editing's for. But you're going to talk about the fact that, like, we bring up, hey, there are some of these texts that have a literary focus. They're not trying to tell you about theology. They're not trying to tell you about history. Like, this is a literary thing. And yet, just because you're concerned with whether it does or doesn't conflict with science, you're missing the literary stuff that's going on. And if this last sentence is Andrew, which I'm going to guess it is because I don't generally hear scholars say cardinal errors in reading the Bible by failing to grasp and understand what it's about. But, hey, I don't have eidetic memory. He fires back with, well, my model isn't trying to prove a positive. It's just showing that it's, not conflicting. Honey, that's not how any hard science is done. That's not how archaeology is done. That's not how anthropology or history is done. You have to show positive evidence for your hypothesis. You can't go, well, it doesn't contradict. No. And he's going to be like, this is an error. Andrew, you don't want to admit that the Bible's your starting place, so you're getting very upset at the conversation that was going on in this video, and I'm sorry, but them's the breaks.
maybe I'll just say, to Andrew directly. As I'm reading through this, I guess I could apologize for failing. I'm sorry I didn't realize that your goal in this was just not to take the text seriously. Because that's kind of what it feels like. If every response to what the text says and what it means is, wow, it's irrelevant to whether or not it contradicts with this scientific idea. It just doesn't get us anywhere.
Also, where are the geneticists in this field to talk about his model? Because his genealogical Adam and Eve model, if you can't make positive claims and predictions, it's not a scientific model.
I don't know anything about that.
Oh.
So.
Oh, it's the slavery guy.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, but let's play with this a little bit, right? So
Okay.
task A is read the Bible and understand
Yes.
or understand it, interpret it, something, one or the other.
Task A
We'll
is
figure that out.
interpret.
Yeah, or read. He's a little bit unclear about
Or
that,
read,
but
right?
interpret.
Yeah.
So task B is establish truth claims or something, verify
Yes.
historicity, truth, something.
Show that the
And
biblical
task
account
C
true.
is compatibility. So let's just make a statement right here. The Bible is compatible with slavery.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
Prove me wrong.
no, I mean it's
The-
that's a much more straightforward connection to make than what he's trying to do here.
Well, I mean,
Right?
so the Bible does not contradict mass genocide.
Nope.
Okay.
No contradiction
So-
there.
Yeah,
So-
and so that's so what game are we playing? Like is every I don't know. It's fun. It's a fun game though. Let's see how many bad things we
Pick a
can think of
science,
that we
though.
can.
Not like pick a science, not like a morality question. Gosh.
Okay. Oh wait, science. Can we pick bad science?
Well, the Bible does not
Bible
contradict
does not
butter.
contradict. Does not contradict the. Sorry, what's the opposite of heliocentrism?
The geocentric model in the flat Earth,
Geocentrism?
right?
Geocentrism?
Geocentrism. Sorry. Yeah.
The Bible doesn't contradict epicycles.
The Bible doesn't contradict eugenics.
Ooh.
Yikes.
Well,
Kept
I
going
mean,
for the throat.
right. So, but yeah,
So-
this is.
I mean, where is this getting us, right? Like,
Right.
Also, the elephant in the room is you can't prove a negative. I feel like we should say that.
Yeah.
Probably should have said an hour ago, but you can't prove a negative. So his whole
Yeah.
thing of like, but this doesn't conflict. No. Weak. Or in the words of Immortan Joe, mediocre.
All right.
Yeah.
That's a few reference
look,
there, Kip.
Good. Now
After-
that we understand what game we're playing, it's good.
That's good. We'll get into maybe we'll just go through this bit here fairly quickly until we get to some of the stuff where he engages more directly in
I'm
the
with
text.
Earl. Or I killed Earl on this. Since this guy seems to think he's being misunderstood, he might want to consider that his argument is not very well constructed.
Yes.
Let's give it a think.
Yeah. It's something to think about, right? Okay. After playing my clip. Oh.
No. I just wondered if I killed Earl. What is that? Is that a reference to that song "Goodbye, Earl," or what's the reference? I wonder what the.
I've never
I just
asked.
wonder if I killed Earl, could just let me know in the chat. Just
Yes, let us know. I killed Earl.
We need the lore.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
It is.
It
You
is.
see that? They said
Good
it
catch.
is.
Thank you.
Nice.
Great song. Yeah, nice.
All right.
Nice.
Okay. After playing my clip where I said, let me say something more about task A first, about interpreting the text, one critic said, I was nodding, it is a complex interweaving of genres. Yes, that's true. I agree. Genealogies shows an interest in chronology, while vaguely speaking. However, the critic then goes on to say, but he's putting way too much weight on that as if those are accurate. So we were
Agreed.
talking, he brings in, at one point he brings in the genealogies from Genesis 4, 5, and 10, and his point is to show that the author thinks that these are history, that the author thinks that these are real and rooted in reality. So in reply he says,
with no other influence. So purely reality.
I don't know about
The
that.
author-
I guess just it's important, I think, for him that the author thinks that this is real. So, and I would agree, right? But then he says, I was not talking about whether these are accurate. That's task B. Rather, as noted, I was talking about task A. So here he's talking about task A by pointing out, I think, that the author is intending these to be understood as historical reflections. But again, one of the things that he's also doing is this language game, right? Just so long as he doesn't have to weigh in on whether he thinks they're accurate, I think he saves. Yes, exactly. It's a shell game. It's totally a shell game.
but even then, like, this is very flimsy, because I'm not convinced that the genealogy from Adam to Noah is being construed as an actual historical reality. Like, I'm going to be doing a video later this fall on these Sumerian king lists and the construction of a mythical past in Sumerian literature, and that it has these 8 generations from creation to the flood, and you have the same thing paralleled in Genesis, maybe, and we have this issue where the Sumerians knew that their kings didn't live for 28,000 years.
Of
But they
course.
put these numbers on it because there was this transition from which city was important and there's all these kind of things in play, and they're creating a mythical past that's beyond the reach because it's before the flood, and all knowledge and everything before the flood has been washed away and it's all gone, and so we have this, like, I don't think that the composers of Genesis were oblivious to that. And so it's like, it's actually so I would dispute that the genealogies are being construed 100% as historical realities in that way.
And
I think
I'd be interested to know his response or his reply to that.
and especially
Also,
when
okay, this whole thing, Noah means 10th person. No, it doesn't. 8 refers to Noah. No. Noah is a word play. If you spell grace backwards, Chain, you get Noah, rest or repose. It's a pun.
Yep.
Doesn't have anything to do with numbers.
But also, like, it's funny that the genealogies of Cain and the genealogy of Seth
almost
share
identical.
So many names.
Well,
they're almost identical.
It's the same thing, right?
And so,
it's
it's
very
just
clearly
like,
the same thing.
Cousins were just naming their kids the same thing,
Yeah.
or is that, I don't know.
Kind of weird, but you know.
I've talked elsewhere about the genealogies in chapter 4 and 5 and the long ages, and it's very interesting, especially when you look at Berossus's version of the King's List, right? And you can do some fun little math there, which shows pretty clearly that the authors of Genesis were just riffing off of this and using Berossus's list as a way to perform their own calculations of the time between creation and the flood. It's pretty wild, but
It's pretty wild.
yeah. Anyhow,
Talk to Neil. Talk to Neil about that this week. I think then you can build a friendship if you tell him you think that the Genesis is using Berossus.
Oh, he'll be happy about that.
We're gonna discover Kip's body in a swamp somewhere.
We're getting into that, guys. We've already Derek and Neil have already started planning a big. We're gonna do at least one show, talking about the Exodus and the invention of Noah and all that fun stuff. So should be
I talked to
good.
Derek today. He sounded very excited about you coming.
Yeah, I'm stoked to go. He has a hot tub and a swimming pool, so
as
you're not going to need the hot tub.
That's enough for me. No, probably not.
When you're down there,
so
make sure that he lets you drink some sweet tea.
Okay.
Highly recommend Milo's if you can get it.
Hey,
which you probably can.
Okay, cool. Hey, Vish, let's skip over on the next page to where it starts at 39 at 3908. I think that's the third paragraph. This is where you start to get into some of the issues with the text itself. One critic criticized John Collins, and as I said in the I saw that, Matt. This is not the good John Collins. This is a scholar by the name of C. John Collins, who teaches at I think Covenant Bible Seminary.
Okay, it's not John J. Collins.
It's not John J. Collins. No.
Okay.
So one critic criticized Collins's interpretation of the days in Genesis chapter 1 by saying that you're not going to get much of a harder, faster definition of a 24-hour day than in Genesis 1. I mean, it's laid out over and over there in the text. Right there was morning, and there was evening, and there was morning.
Evening and morning.
Day. Yeah. So his response to this
also,
was
if you really think about it, evening and morning, that's only like 12 hours. It doesn't really go from morning to evening. But I mean, maybe that's just me being pedantic again. Time cube.
So he says that the days are analogous, and I think we need to kind of walk through this a little bit. So the critic failed to note that Collins's view is different from the traditional day-age theory, which assumes that the Hebrew word yom to mean something other than a 24-hour day in Genesis 1, like long ages, I guess. Rather, on Collins's view, yom means a 24-hour day, but in context is analogous for longer periods of time. So, for example, in day 7, where the concluding formula, there was evening and there was morning, which is used for the completion of duration, is absent. An analogy means a comparison between one thing and another, typically for the purpose of explanation or clarification, a correspondence, or partial similarity, from Oxford. For example, the expansion of a balloon is often used by cosmologists as an analogy for the Big Bang. In this case, the meaning of the term balloon, the rubber bag that is inflated with air, is not changed, but is used analogously in the context. Likewise, on Collins's view, the meaning of yom is not changed when it is used analogously. The critic's criticism then is based on a failure to understand Collins's analogous day view.
No. Just no to that whole thing. No to that entire paragraph. Dishonor on you. Dishonor on your cow. you can't say, oh, well, I mean, his view is that Yom really, like, does mean a 24-hour day, but he's using it as an analogy. So, like, you can have Yom be a 24-hour day, but also this is about long periods of time, too. So it's both, but, like, really, they're not the same. Get out of here.
I think somebody was reading the Gen X Bible where it says and that was like Yom 1 and there was an analogy made.
There you go.
Because
Oh my god.
I still continue to hold to this fact. The one of the critical features of Genesis 1 is the establishment of the Sabbath.
Yeah.
A 7-day week is kind of the point. There's a lot of points in Genesis 1, but this is a big one. There are 7 days in a week, and you've got to rest on the 7th. Because that's what God did on the 7th day.
Yeah.
And I just don't think there's any getting around that. And this feels, again, like language games. Scientists
have his cake and eat it too.
Yes. Scientists use colloquial language to describe, the indescribable, but that's not what the biblical author is doing. You'll never convince me of that. So,
and like, again, this is just betraying the fact that you don't really care what the original language says or what the syntax means, because Yom Echad, day 1, or 1 day.
Yeah.
Guys, there's not a lot of wiggle room with that one, especially when you put it right after, and there was evening and there was morning. Day 1.
And I think,
or 1 day.
I think, too, something else that needs to be said here is that this is what the days were called in, early Judaism, in ancient
still call them,
Israelite culture. And so that's essentially what's happening in the text when it says Yom Echad, day 1, day 2, day 3. It's providing those identifiers because it's important that you rest on the 7th day.
You get the right day. It's,
right?
Yeah.
That's absolutely critical. And I continue to maintain that this is just an insurmountable point. You can't get around this. This is what the text is about.
Yeah, but that's stop doing task A. Come on, let's do a different task.
Can I read the next? Can I read the next little bit, because this is exactly what I just said that he was doing, and then he does it. Okay. Another critic said, quote, "There's another camp that's like, well, there weren't periods of time where God did just one thing, and it's an analogy. It's like a metaphor for how God created things over billions of years, and it doesn't mean that for billions of years only plants lived without the sun or whatever. They'll just kind of hand wave it," end quote. In reply, neither Collins nor myself is saying it's like a metaphor for how God created things over billions of years when we talk about analogy. Rather, what we are saying is that the text is using day analogously for a longer unspecified period of time. It's one thing to say that this unspecified duration is not contradictory with billions of years, which concerns task C. It is another thing to say that it is a metaphor for billions of years, which concerns task A. Thus, the critic is confusing task A with task C. Don't you know?
Error 14.
Moreover, the critics claim that they'll just kind of hand wave it is a misrepresentation, error 15, and fails to note that I have explained in detail in chapter 3 of my academic book, The Origin of Humanity and Evolution, how to understand the biblical descriptions of the 6 days of creation, including the creation of the sun on day 4. The critic hasn't engaged with my detailed explanations. nor with Collins's justification for the analogous day view, which he offered in his book, Reading Genesis Well.
Tasque.
Andrew, no one cares what your book
No.
says because
Yeah, I'm
you
not gonna read
literally
it.
just told on yourself right there. We're not going to say that it's a metaphor for billions of years. We're just going to say the text is just some long period of time. We don't know how long it is. It's just unspecified. So is it billions of years, or is it millions, or thousands, or dozens?
It's just
doesn't
unspecified.
matter.
It doesn't contradict.
It's unspecified because that's not. Yes, I don't know, but I mean I'm not going to read your book, Andrew.
This
I
right
probably
here.
wouldn't like it because it seems like sort of a futile topic. The origin of humanity and evolution on the basis if we're reading the Bible, then that's you're doing it wrong. Yeah.
I can't get past this sentence. It is literally, you just told on yourself. Right there. It's not a metaphor, it's an analogy. And it's unspecified periods of time. Dude.
Yeah.
Andrew, I don't know what you thought you were doing here. But it didn't work. And I kind of agree with MattNet here. Too long, didn't read. I failed to summarize my arguments appropriately, so it's your fault for not reading 2 full books to understand them. That's some Richard Carrier-esque nonsense right there.
That's true. All right.
Yep.
A critic argues that the genre favors reading Genesis 1:1 as a temporal clause, and said Dr. Loke, if he is serious about paying close attention to genre in terms of reading this literature, then this is something that needs to be noted. The critic fails to note that, 1, while genre is an important consideration, it is not the only consideration for interpreting a text.
He didn't say it was the only one.
I don't know that anybody suggested that. No.
Nobody did.
2, Collins has offered grammatical considerations for an alternative reading in his publication, which I cited, Reading Genesis Well, Chapter 7.
Hey, wouldn't that be interpreting the Bible? Because if you're offering an alternate reading, aren't you just interpreting it different?
It would, yes.
Sorry,
but also
that's task A.
Arguments need to be judged on whether or not they're convincing. I'd have to see the argument, and based on everything that I've looked at, reading Genesis 1:1 as a temporal clause is pretty much the appropriate way to read that text. But it does continue.
But even I don't. So I'm just throwing that. Like I'm one of those people that wouldn't say that's the definitive answer, because
sure.
I think there's it's just as easy to just say the vowel pointing is wrong, and that it did say in the beginning, and we don't have to do all this. I mean, like the fact that the pointing that the vowels in the Masoretic text make us read something and look for an answer, it just annoys me that's what we spend our time arguing about for that passage. Like it seems a little silly. That's what we're gonna. So I don't have a lot to say about it, but I just think it's pointless to, unless you're trying to make truth claims about the origin of the universe, which is task B. I don't think it's very valuable to the discussion. But yeah,
exactly.
I can't stop laughing at this. Well, they didn't read my book. We don't care about your book. We were responding to like a video.
Yeah.
Wasn't a response to your book. Why would we need to be like, well, before we can respond to a video that he did, we should read all his publications? Nobody does that.
It's true. Okay. Let's skip ahead some more here to
just
yeah, let's go down
passing the buck off to
to
Collins. This is
third.
again, this is Richard Carrier nonsense. Like, oh well,
Yeah.
this other academic said this thing. So if you have a
Your
problem, take it
argument
up
is
with them.
actually with
Like,
him.
Well,
yeah,
but man, I
yeah,
mean, this really confused me when you put that up there. I really thought John J. Collins
I know,
had
eh?
said this, and I was so
Well,
confused. So I feel like this is like another sleight of hand, like trying to confuse us into thinking that the Collins says stuff. I don't know who this Collins is.
I don't either. I
Is
never heard
that
of
we're
him.
leaning on.
I
So
I had to ask.
yeah.
I watched the actual. I watched the actual live stream live, and as soon as he threw John Collins up on the screen there, I was like, What? John Collins?" So I was
yeah.
yes, Matt, or sorry, Zach told me who this guy is. So thank you, Zach,
This other
for setting me straight.
bit.
Yeah, see John
He
Collins.
goes, well, my model's
Uh,
not committed to Collins's interpretation. I mean,
yeah.
I think it's defensible, which is why I mention it, and that it has not been refuted by critics. He is really trying to give himself an out here. It's like, well, if you disagree with it, take it up with Collins. I only mentioned it because it's interesting, and like my model's not dependent on it, so it hasn't been refuted.
I
This
get
is
so I
just
get
the most dishonest. This is why I'm mean. I'm not mean to people just because. I'm mean with dishonest people. And if you're dishonest with yourself, I can't help you. Like, it's gotten to that point.
yeah. I get so irritated too by people making declarations about refutations, right? Like particular when it comes to things like the humanities, things like philology.
Mm.
We've got arguments and models. And there's I mean a refutation. I mean, a refutation is where somebody has made, obvious errors. So, if you make obvious errors with regards to your reading of the syntax of the text, like, yeah, you can make refutations of that, but that's not what we're talking about here. You can't refute uh models, the kinds of models and and ideas that we're talking about here. Does that make
Well, and
sense? Like,
yeah, I mean, generally things are refuted that have made an impact and
yeah,
are acknowledged widely as being valuable to engage with and refute. Like it's like I mean, this is one of those classic things that like you see in I won't name names because I'm not that kind of person, but you see it a lot around YouTube where people will say, Bart Ehrman has never refuted my claims or whatever, and like yeah, he Bart Ehrman's never read my books. He even admits it. He hasn't read my books, so therefore I'm right. And like that is literally not how it works. Like
Mm.
when things
yep,
become an established uh, argument or theory in the field, then people engage with it. And when somebody provides a new idea, the majority of scholars will choose whether or not to engage or accept based on whether or not it's worth engaging.
exactly.
And so when you say
Mm.
yom means an undistinguished amount of time sometimes, but it also means day at the same time, then nobody's going to say, oh, yes, there's the new theory that makes sense to us about the meaning of this word because we didn't know what it meant.
Yep.
Like the immediate reaction is going to be, well, that adds nothing to our
Mm.
discussion. So we don't need to refute that by saying like that here are all the examples of where this isn't what's happening.
Yeah, and Loke knows this because he has multiple degrees, so he knows that when you are contributing to the consensus, you have to contribute something novel. You can't just go, well, I mean, I have an idea and nothing conflicts with it, so hey, this should be taken seriously. He knows that's not how it works. He's done publishing in the field, right? He
Yeah.
wouldn't have gotten away with that.
Yeah.
It's true. All right. Let's look at the next paragraph I want to look at here is the third one down. Starts with the critics. The critics then showed my presentation of a PowerPoint slide which reads the exact same Hebrew words, asa and yatsar, that describe God's forming of embryos in the womb and God's forming of plant and animal life are used to describe God's forming of the human species. For example, in Genesis 2, verse 7. The use of these words implies, or at the very least does not rule out, that God
Oh my
forming
goodness.
humankind was a process and not an instantaneous event. So after that, Jennifer Bird objected. It makes me sad when I hear someone making that kind of bizarre stretch. This creation of the human out of clay in chapter 2 is a long process. So his reply
Objection,
to
Your
this
Honor.
is that I am not claiming that Genesis chapter 2 affirms that the creation of human was a long process. Bird inserted the word long. Rather, my point in citing Moritz was to argue that Genesis 2 does not rule out the possibility that creation of human was a long process.
Objection, Your Honor.
Long.
So,
If it please the court,
yes.
have you noticed that all of his callouts so far have said a critic, the critic, another critic, and yet this one instance he calls Jennifer Bird out by name?
Yeah, I wondered about that myself. She's the only individual who's specifically named in the document. But
Andrew, you may want to check that tendency. You may want to check that.
I'm not saying anything, but it's something I noticed. So Matt, the Hebrew word asa.
Hmm.
So
He done and did it.
like it can mean a process, right?
When it's used processually.
Processually, yes.
I mean, let's
Is it used that way in Genesis 1 and 2?
Oh my god.
Honestly, it's a very interesting question because I've never ever heard it argued like that.
I
Like,
never
I've
even
never
thought
heard it.
about it, right?
So I mean, so
Ugh.
the verb, like a verb in itself, does not
Yeah.
have. Okay, that's wrong to say it like that. But generally speaking, verbs in Hebrew do not have a punctual or an extended
Yeah.
meaning until you apply the verbal aspect to it. And so when you use something in the katal form, it will be punctual usually, and when you use the yiktol form, then it will be more of a
Derivative.
imperfect durative extended something model. I mean, and so that to say that these verbs have to do with processes is it's
You got to
it-
conjugate them.
you can't just say that. And so, but okay, fair enough. Like it's I don't remember the syntax, so it's possible that there's an imperfect verb form being used, and but that still wouldn't say anything that you could compare with the forming of embryos in the womb to the modeling of the human.
I think I got so
I mean,
thrown off by the inclusion of Yatsar there in particular, because it's within Genesis 2, what's happening is very intentional, right?
Yeah.
And the usage of that particular verb in Genesis chapter 2 to describe what Yahweh God is doing in the dirt is very intentional. And I don't know, maybe it's because I'm stuck on task A, but I can't help but see, the imagery of Genesis chapter 2 and 3, and the fact that God is forming, literally sculpting all the creatures, including the man, out of the dirt, as a hint as to what the author meant by this. And I don't think I think it's completely irrelevant whether or not it was. I mean, I would certainly agree. Yeah, this wasn't instantaneous. If you're reading the text properly, it takes him some time to make
I'm also
things right.
looking.
But that's not the point.
I mean, I'm also looking at verse 7, where Yatzar is used. Vayetzer
Yes.
Adonai Elohim et ha'adama afar. So it's like from the dust of the earth. I don't know how how Andrew is getting from dust of the earth, discussing like the first human, to forming embryos in the womb.
Well, should we? Maybe we should move on, because it kind of gets to this in the next paragraph here. So I'll just at 55:24, a critic objected to my argument concerning.
I just have to go open the door for my kid. He's just come home.
He got home safely.
All right.
Hooray! Okay. Objected to my argument concerning Yitzhar in Genesis 2:7 by arguing that taking one verse, taking a modern understanding of what we have of the formation of embryology, that's not a good way to approach this type of lexicography. Lexicography, for anyone who doesn't know, is the study of the word usage and definition in antiquity. In reply, the slide I showed was not assuming a modern understanding of embryology. Rather, I was referring to the fact that ancient people knew some things about the formation of embryos too. In particular, they knew that it took a process of development over time, even though their understanding of many other details has been shown to be inaccurate by modern science. And then
would you say that they understood it took about 9 months?
Probably, right? He says, I noted on page 121 of my book multiple biblical passages which speak of the formation of human beings in the womb. Psalm 139, 13-16. That's the famous one. I knit you in the dark places, in the secret places of the earth. Yes. Isaiah 44:24, 49:5, 44:2. So the verbs asa and yatsar are used likewise to describe God's forming of the human species. So I was basing my argument concerning the ancient biblical usage of yatsar on ancient rather than modern understanding of embryology, and multiple, not one verse, contrary to the critics' misrepresentation. So
no, the ancients did not understand embryology. You can't literally open up your presentation and this letter by saying, well, you can't backtrack modern science on the Bible and then say the ancient understanding of embryology. Andrew, pick a lane.
Yeah, that feels a little bit concordy to me. But
and then he's also saying usage of asa and yatsar, forming of the human species. Why did he inject species there? Because that's not a native Hebrew word, and I can't think of any translations in English off the top of my head that use the word species in Genesis to describe what God did in chapter 2 to the first human. Can he maybe account for backtracking that on there or retconning it on there or whatever he's doing? Because I've got some issues with that. Thank you, decades.
You got me. That's that's logic. That's my logic. Oh, by the way, did you
Good.
see this?
Oh
Hang on,
my
let me
gosh!
spell you.
Where did you get that?
Hey, that's fancy.
Wow!
Yeah, I made it.
Are you selling those?
I'm
Can
giving them
you
away
all
at this point.
go? Oh wow!
I mean, not to
That's
everybody.
awesome,
Lady,
dude.
girl, what's up?
Yeah.
I'm excited about it.
I just wanted to see if it would work, So I just ordered it and it worked. So yeah.
Nice.
Yay!
The writing's very
So
tiny, but
Maya's.
if someone's right up on
I,
you, it should be okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's well,
I think
no,
it's.
no, I'm not gonna say.
I think it's
But
classy.
I'm gonna in the
Classy.
second round they're gonna be a little bigger.
Okay.
Yeah.
Simone says
But-
she needs one.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
I
will.
think there's a cry
Oh,
in the chat
and
for merch. So
Michael Beverly
Wow.
wants
10
10
Yeah.
Yeah.
extra large. Michael, wow.
Yeah.
Honestly, you're.
No,
I didn't think you were
no,
that
so-
big.
So let's just remember that that I'm talking only about task C when I'm talking about that I'm giving them away. So this is I'm it doesn't contradict, but I'm not actually talking about a historical reality or a present reality.
We're not interpreting your shirt. All right. We're not showing
No.
that your shirt is like historically true.
Yeah. Well, I'm just saying that there is a possible universe where I don't sell them, but give them away.
So
Anything's possible
Anyway,
in the multiverse.
But yeah. But
So he
anyway,
wa-
so my
yeah.
son is home, so
Oh.
I'm not going to be around for much longer. Since
No,
it's the middle of the night.
we're gonna shut this down in like
Mhm.
15 minutes, I think. So
Okay, well then
Um,
I'll surf through a few more minutes with you.
all right, sweet man. Okay, so now he gets into parallels between Genesis creation stories and other ancient Near Eastern mythology. So the critics later played a clip where I presented a summary of pages 44 to 45 of my book. Parallels do not prove that Genesis borrowed from Mesopotamia mythology. That's a quotation. It's quoting, I'm pretty sure that's Bill Arnold.
Oh.
I'm not sure which one. I wonder if that's I wonder if that's this book. Let's see. Arnold. Is it that one? No, I don't think it's this one. What year was this?
It's probably Arnold's Genesis commentary, isn't it?
Probably. This one's 2000. This is his intro book. Where is that? Yeah, that's his second edition intro, which I don't really recommend. Sorry, Bill Arnold. So anyways, that quote from Arnold, parallels do not prove that Genesis borrowed from Mesopotamian mythology. It could be the case they both descended from a common tradition. The Mesopotamian version got corrupted by myths to conform to the polytheistic religions of its people. That's from
Of course,
Trepper
the
Longman
Mesopotamian
III
one
and Diller.
got corrupted.
Yes.
Not the
He
Hebrew Bible
cites
version.
eminent scholar Kenneth Kitchen from his 1966 book on the reliability of the Old Testament. Says Kitchen
We'll keep
argues
up with
that, in fact,
field.
the contrast between the simple creation account in Genesis and the more elaborate ancient Near Eastern creation epics indicates that the Genesis account had earlier roots, for it is generally the case that simple accounts or traditions give rise by accretion or embellishment to elaborate legends. How do you feel about that
This
one,
is
Matt?
really making my heart.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't even think it's really worth engaging with, because what there's two classic errors here, right? The
Yeah.
one is to separate Israelite mythology from Mesopotamian mythology and try to say Israel is not part of any culture, not participating in this
Yep.
ancient Near Eastern world that's around it. Or I mean, maybe he would say counter and say, oh, but it's Levantine and not Mesopotamia. Well, I don't care. Like it's just that trying to prove that it's not part of the rest of the culture and they're somehow different and not corrupted, which is just silly. And then the other
Yes,
thing
it is.
is to just, I mean, the fact that you can try to deny that there is a relationship between these things is I mean, so you don't have to be a parallel maniac to say the Bible was influenced by outside traditions. Like it's just not a radical claim. It's a radical claim to
Absolutely
say
not.
that these are just yeah, I don't know. It's just like it's just tiring. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
It's tiring and it's late for Matt.
yeah. But like,
So-
and also it's just like, this is literally what I do, right? It's just like,
Yes.
just it's, I mean, the whole text is full of these parallels, and it would like it. You don't have to deny the originality of the Israelite scribes who put together the Israelite versions. It's great literature. It's interesting. It's
Yep.
fun to read, but it's not. It's not the only pure version of something. Like that's just. Yeah.
So one of the criticisms that I made regarding this specific point to Andrew was that I don't think you can effectively show the same relationships in the other direction. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't think you can effectively promote or suggest a plausible model whereby the Enuma Elish was just elaborating on this ancient creation story in Genesis 1, right? Like that's a lot of work to get there. You can't just sit back and say one is simpler, therefore it's older. And again,
Right.
I need to see some sort, like, what do you mean by that when you
Yeah.
say it's simpler?
Oh yeah.
You know, it's just there's so much work that has to go into demonstrating that point.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, and if it was one thing, so if it was just like
Yes.
one trope or word or phrase or even one little story, and you were like, okay, this seems to have a parallel out there, but we don't like have any other way of explaining this phenomenon. But when you have it in every single chapter, you know, you see it again and again and again,
Yeah.
these things happening. And you know, and it's like I've been reading all the flood myths in original languages. So we've been through the Sumerian, we've been through starting on the Akkadian ones, and you read it and you can see the genetic relationships between those, right? You know that the Sumerian myth was translated into Akkadian, and you can see it in the way the names are written. You can see in the way things are borrowed, and you know that the Sumerian was made into an independent myth, which was then incorporated into Gilgamesh. And then we can see the same elements in Hebrew, and we know that the story is related to the other stories. Like it like it's just so silly to say, oh, but this is the simpler version. No, the
Right.
simpler version is that the actual genetic progression happened. like that these things were taken and developed and used, and that's the simpler explanation. Like, it's very not simple to say everybody just kind of got the corrupted version, except for Noah, who just happened to both take 2 and 2 and 7 of the animals. Like he,
Yeah.
whoopsies. Yeah. Anyway, so I'm rambling again. It's late.
So
It's
no, but you're on point there, and that's a lot of what I was trying to show in my original critique of this. The critic misrepresents my argument, for I wasn't arguing from the assumption of divine inspiration. Rather, I was arguing that the conclusion that the Bible borrowed from mythologies does not logically follow from parallels, because there are
But it
alternative
does.
historical explanations.
I can explain it differently.
Citations from OT
Therefore,
scholars Arnold Longman and Kitchen. Yeah. But again, and this is where I come back, right? Okay. Do these models provided by Arnold Longman and Kitchen actually work? Like, can you make an effective argument beyond just saying, well, this is
nuh-uh.
possible?
besides, nuh-uh.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
but
correct me if I'm wrong. Isn't the consensus that they did borrow from each other? All of the different cultures that lived in that region?
well,
Yeah.
but again, the consensus among critical scholars, and
Yes.
that's the kind of the crux of this whole thing, is that we are in agreement that there is a historical process to these things, that we know that at the discovery of the Babylonian and Sumerian literature, that there was parallelomania that made people think that the Bible was just forged, copied directly from this kind of these things, and then there was a reaction to that where people said, "Nah, this is all original." And then you kind of have mellowed out now that critical scholars pretty much tend to think, yes, there was interactions, and unless you're only trying to argue for the infallibility or purity of the Hebrew text, then there's no reason to deny it. Like, there's no reason to deny it. But it's among critical scholars, and so when you look to the evangelical scholars, there's going to be a different consensus, and that's this risky thing about trying to use consensus to prove anything, because if you say, well, the consensus, well, among the 14 people that I looked at who are all evangelical scholars, is that there's not any reliance on Sumerian or Akkadian myths, then you've said that, like, again. But
Yeah, that's also the difference between STEM fields and things like archaeology. Proof is for mathematics and alcohol. You don't prove something did or didn't happen in history. That's not the way it works. You find evidence and you make a case that is maybe strong, not as strong, or weak, and you look at the different interpretations of all of the evidence that you find, and the consensus is just telling you what most people find the most convincing at the time with what we have. It doesn't prove anything. So
we're looking for the best explanations for things, and we're always interested in what new evidence and arguments have to say.
Yes, exactly. Also, within critical scholarship, no one is talking about corruption, right?
No. Right.
Like, what I, as a critical scholar, recognizing that the individual creation stories in Genesis 1 and Genesis 2, 3, and moving forward, are drawing from older ancient Near Eastern mythology. This is not corruption. I don't think the biblical text is a corruption of other ancient Near Eastern myths. It's development. it's working with this material and it's reshaping it. It's
Polemics.
taking existing, it's
Yeah.
using polemics. Yes. There's all sorts of things going on there. It's just it's incredibly naive to talk about these texts and in the intertextuality in the way that Dr. Loke has here.
Yeah, and I think this goes for both sides as well, because I also get upset when people say things like the Bible forged this or whatever, like, because the
me
language
too.
of forgery is very silly, because it's like it doesn't understand what ancient literature is doing. And so like that's why I like the terms reception or reception is the word I like, actually, because it's an active process of restyling something into a new context, and that is, I think that's a more neutral way of discussing it than to talk about forgery or corruption or one way or the other,
Yeah, like, if you've seen the movie Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? Did that just forge the Odyssey? No. It did not. It took elements from the Odyssey and told a story using some of those elements. And it kind of broadly follows the story. But it's not one-to-one. You wouldn't say, oh, well, this just ripped off the Odyssey. Like, no, it's just a spin. It's a riff, I guess, to use a not very academic term. It's riffing on the Odyssey. So I get frustrated with the dismissive attitude
that I really liked, and I think we can probably shut it down here. But I just want to mention this because I just discovered this show a couple weeks back, and it's pretty great. Is there's a new show on Netflix right now called Chaos, starring Jeff Goldblum as the father of the gods, Zeus, in a retelling of a number of stories from Greek mythology, but really focused on the story of what's her name? Shoot, the woman who died and her lover went to the underworld to get her back. I don't remember the name.
Persephone?
Persephone's
like Hades and Persephone,
the wife of but there's another story about a woman who went to Hades, and her husband actually went after her. Orpheus. There we go. That's the one. Thank you. Decades. The story of Orpheus. So that's sort of the framework, but there's lots of other stuff going on in there. And it's very cool. I think everyone should check it out. So Chaos, spelled correctly with the letter K. All right. Well, I think we're gonna shut it down. I did Michael Beverly. I wonder what drops in 1 week from today. Perhaps me and Kip, maybe, just saying. So
hey, very cool. What are you gonna be talking about?
That's fun, right? So Michael Beverly's doing a series of videos right now, responding to some silly stuff that Christian apologist Alan Parr did. So I went on with him to talk about Deuteronomy 21. So that's pretty good. But yeah. So thanks for I think we got one super chat that we didn't get to from the governor. Thank you very much for the $5. There weren't any biblical literalists when I read theology at King's Loke's PhD school. He keeps
this up.
if he
I may
keeps
have to lie about my alma mater.
I may have to
or if
ouch. Sorry about that, Gov. But yeah. Well, thanks everyone for coming and hanging out. I'm flying tomorrow. Thanks, Matt, for chilling. And
thanks for letting me in. It was random but fun.
Very random, but it's fun
And
that you were
yep.
up. So, and you're gonna be we're gonna be back on the second Sunday of October for another episode of the Diablo Critics. So, and I mean, I can probably I'll drop the hint here
Yes.
in terms of what we're going to cover. If you didn't know, guys,
Say mark your calendars.
yes, mark it. I don't know the actual date right now, but Mark Driscoll wrote a new book, and it's called I I can barely get the words out. It's called Vote Like Jesus.
Oh no.
So
Oh no.
and he's currently working through a sermon series on his new book. So we'll have some things
Does
to
it
look at
just
and talk about.
happen to just coincidentally, as a, happenstance, a turn of events, line up with modern right-wing GOP politics? Does it just happen that way?
Oh yeah, and let me just read a little blurb here.
Oh,
It says,
you have a blurb.
well, for the book, it's on the Amazon page. He
Okay.
says, "Our world has lost its mind. Most Christians are prepared for peacetime, but we have entered
No, they
wartime,
aren't.
and our world is now against Christianity. In
Oh
times
my
like these, we
goodness!
as Christians need to ask ourselves, what would Jesus do? How would Jesus vote? To do that, we need to educate ourselves on important issues." Oh, this
Mm.
book answers the big questions like, why is the government against God? Is America a nation in decline?
Okay.
How is globalism a sign of the end times? As we lose hope in government, we can find hope in God.
Okay.
I'm
Yeah,
excited,
so
guys.
I have a meme. I have a meme for this. It's never not relevant.
there you
And
go.
it's this one.
That is
Mark, that's for you,
no.
buddy.
Oh, sweet. All right.
There you
Well, everyone, come back in October.
go.
We'll do more stuff. So good to see you guys. Thanks everyone in the chat for coming and hanging out. Thank you everyone who sent in super chats. And for those of you who do can who do pray to a god or the gods, I would humbly request that you remember me as I venture into the swamps of Florida, that I don't get dehydrated, that I don't suffer heat stroke, that I'm not eaten by alligators, or that I don't have my blood drained by giant insects. I would
Yeah.
greatly appreciate that. So
Gonna have to beseech the local swamp gods.
someone's gonna have to teach me who those are, because I don't know any. But yeah. All right. Let's get out of here. So thanks everyone. I'm trying to find my my exit. Oh, there we go. All right. See ya.